Hi, welcome back to Weatherford Daze. I am thrilled to be joined today by Leya, the lovely Leya, who has been working hard today, had a long day, which makes it even more special that you were able to take the time out and actually join me. Hopefully, you don't fall asleep halfway through.
Hopefully not. I had about as much of a break as the girls in this movie did before finishing their concert and then releasing their new album. So it was about that much break, that much amount of couch.
And with that, we're going to be talking about K-pop Demon Hunters today, which kind of, thinking about it, I'm going, this has been out for quite a while now. So probably most people have either already watched it and formed their own opinions on it, or has chosen not to watch it because it is about demon hunters. And so they just decided not to watch it whatsoever. So I don't know that we're really trying to influence anybody or form anybody's opinions, figure everybody has it. But we watched it and we enjoyed talking about it. And we had some, it was one of those that we delayed watching it just because it didn't come up on our radar, I guess.
Well, it was kind of constantly on mine. Everybody I knew was talking about it, all the adults especially. And I was like, whenever a kids' movie has the adults really into it, that usually means there's something there. And I always get very drawn to that kind of thing because I feel like there's something about kids' movies that you can do a little bit more with. And I think that's just because there's not the pressure to make it like gory or mature.
I think for me, though, what actually really made me want to watch it was that I saw several of my friends on Facebook posting about how it was so amazing and it was a Christian movie and all of this stuff. And then I saw some people that I follow on YouTube that were saying, this is a horrible movie. Don't let your kids watch it. And I went, well, I need to watch that with my kids. No. Okay.
You're a rebel.
Granted, my kids are all teenagers, older teenagers. So, and
not anymore.
Yeah. Okay. I've got my lovely 20-year-old here. So it's not, it's not that big a deal to watch, a kid's movie with my youngest being almost 16. So I was doing some internet sleuthing leading up to this because I know that our reaction upon watching it, I immediately went, okay. So that was good and it was enjoyable and it was fun. And the kids are all singing the songs and we're, really vibing with it. And it was cute. It was funny. The songs are catchy. And there was some really good positive messages to it. But I also went
heartwarming.
Okay, hang on, because here's some of the themes that I'm not so sure about. And it's actually, I am really conflicted about this movie and what it's saying. Because at the same time as I'm seeing some really strong redemptive messaging, I'm also seeing some things that could very easily, I could see as being very confusing, especially to younger children, which is who's watching this movie, right? So I went, okay, hang on, we got to talk about it. And we spent probably as long after the movie was over talking about it as we did watching the movie. And that was really fun. And so at that point I went, okay, we need to just go ahead and have a podcast episode because this is fun. So, but also in researching for today, just kind of going, all right, so I saw some people saying they didn't like this. Why didn't they like it? And yeah, there's a whole lot of Christians that really, really did not like this movie, and a whole lot of Christians that really, really did like this movie. And I went, this is way more controversial than anything that I've seen come out in a very, very long time.
Oh,
Why is
wow.
that? It's extraordinarily controversial. It's probably the most controversy around something that I have seen since maybe Harry Potter.
Wow.
Yeah. And I mean, Harry Potter had a lot longer to kind of, I don't know, there was like this flashbang when the first book first came out and started
Mhm.
becoming popular with it. And then it kind of, adjusted and people were like, oh, okay, it's not that bad. And, there was a lot of, again, it was either Christians went, nope, it has witchcraft in it, I won't watch it at all, or
Mhm.
the people who actually did read or watch the books slash movies and then decided, you know what, no, there's actually some good here and I'm going to, actually be okay with it. So, but for this one, it really struck me as the people who are saying it's Christian. And I went, no, it's not Christian. Why are we approaching this as if it's Christian? And then the people who are saying it's evil, and I went, well, no, it's not evil either.
Mhm.
There's some very strong Christian and I think it really does depend on where you're coming at for how you decide, where you end up as far as your opinion on this.
Mhm.
Because if you're looking at it as it's just a kids movie, don't take it that deeply.
There's there's some merit to that, but I think there's a balance since I think
Yeah.
you should never dismiss something as just a kids movie because what are kids but many adults? They're not
And you have to
dumb.
remember every single writer of a book or a movie, especially when they're targeting something for kids, has a reason for doing it. And you have to look at what are their reasons.
Mhm.
And how strongly is their message actually pushed in the narrative of this? And is it a good message or is it a bad? Is there, the negatives that outweigh the positives? And, how deeply entrenched is it in there? Is this something, and again, it's going to be kind of based on age of your child, I think, with how you go about approaching this movie. I
Mhm.
think that a lot of times, and how you approach fiction
Yeah.
and what has been your kids exposure to that, how have you presented that to them,
Mhm.
and then too, just in general, how deeply do you think about what you put in front of your kids, how
Mhm.
much do you talk to your kids about the media that they're consuming, all of those things are going to make a difference in where you end up on this movie. And it just, I understand the controversy
Mhm.
because I was so conflicted,
Yeah.
because I both liked it and disliked it at the same time. So,
Mhm.
with that big long introduction, let's go ahead and start with what we really liked about the movie, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's go there first and then we'll talk about maybe what I didn't like so much
Mhm.
and we'll balance it out. So we'll figure out. Yeah. Okay. So I'm going to turn that over to you as to what were your favorite things about this movie.
Oh man, I feel like I'm such a bad movie critic sometimes because I come away from a lot of movies, especially movies. I don't know why. I'm less critical of them because I don't know. I just tend to enjoy them.
Well, I think that there's going to be a difference in perspective because
Yeah.
I'm a parent and
Yeah,
I'm
no, no.
evaluating through the lens of, what are we saying to our children? What
Yeah.
messages, what themes? Whereas you're thinking just, I'm an adult. What do I like? How did it hit me?
I think there's
So,
definitely a difference in the age with people and how they're going to perceive this movie.
mhm,
I'm of the camp that I think that it is a great movie for like they call them like tweens, maybe 10 to 13-year olds. I think that's a fantastic age range to let kids watch
Hmm.
if you're gonna, if that's the kind of movies that y'all tend to watch. So I'm coming at this more of a perspective of you obviously you have the kind of media literacy of 10 to 20, maybe more, 20, since that's me. Um, I
But
need to,
just first and foremost, I mean, the music is great,
yeah,
right? It's catchy, it's fun. There's,
well written.
yeah.
The balance of this is another something is it is not afraid to have non-English lyrics at all, which sometimes
I'm
this is something
pretty,
that people have done more often is they don't shy away from actually like using different languages because that's what a lot of people do is they speak 2 to 3 languages, and the ability to take, I believe it's Korean. If I am wrong, I'm so sorry, but it is K-pop. It's Korean pop, so that is my assumption.
the song at the very end that's like that they're opening the concert that everybody's like coming and hypnotized to. They're
Yeah.
chanting Latin.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah. And it's actually really creepy. The lyrics, like people have typed in the lyrics, and it is very much the just what you would expect in that moment because
Mm-hmm.
there's this, I mean, they're demons putting on a concert in order to hypnotize people to be able to steal their souls. It's
Yeah.
going to be creepy.
And it's good to put it in Latin because that is a dead language,
Yeah.
and you unconsciously register that. So there's also kind of that balance of, especially just like American audiences or just the general like kid audience, they're not going to know Latin. With the Korean lyrics, I was going to say the way that they take them and fit them alongside English so seamlessly because you've got to think about rhyming patterns, you've got to think about tempo, you've got to think about just the general cadence. And
Mhm.
English, Korean, 2 different languages. You can't just like mix them up and use the same grammar
It
and.
creates the feel like in the Hunchback of Notre Dame when you've got the chanting and just it
Mhm.
really it created the perfect vibe for that moment.
I think that that's something really cool that they do is play with just. Oh, I didn't even know it was 30 languages, just throughout the entirety of the movie. I think their lyricalness
Mhm.
and lyricalness, that's a great word. I think that is fantastic. Also, just the use of motif and I guess the content of the lyrics,
Mhm.
because they change very drastically depending on what song you're talking about. You're talking about like the ending song where was that I wish I had the song list pulled up. But
Yeah, I think the thing that I liked the most about the music was just how you're really getting the story through the music lyrics.
mhm.
And it's not, the demons don't have a good song. They don't have an inspiring song. The
And you
first
might think
song that
soda pop. It's
it's completely fluffy and pointless and vapid,
yeah.
and it's meant to be.
And
Whereas the
it's a
songs
little
that
like
Huntrix group has
yeah.
are very intentionally there is depth,
Mhm.
there is growth, there is this very real deep message to what they're saying. And the one song that they do that is just kind of wrong is this,
Takedown.
yeah, the takedown song, where it's like you can tell that they're losing their message and their
Mhm.
purpose, and it's not working because they go, we're going to do this through our, how great we are and how wonderful we are. And that wasn't what they were supposed to
Mhm.
do. It wasn't supposed to be about them. It was supposed to be about, all of those were working together and were strengthening in the power of love and of forgiveness and of
And
unity.
the
And
way they use that song throughout the narrative to showing Rumi, who, if you haven't seen anything about the plot, we didn't even explain the plot, really.
no, we didn't. Do we want to take a second and do that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Just a quick aside, anyone who does not know the plot of K-pop Demon Hunters, this story is about a group of singers, typically three, who throughout the ages from, like far back in time to the modern era, they have always sung and brought light and love to the world and defeated the demons who are wanting to consume and kill and destroy and corrupt. And they've been this sort of hero group that, for as long as they've been around, the human world is safe and separate from the demon one. And our three characters, Rumi, Mira, and Zoe, are in this kind of modern group. You have like different eras of what's popular in Korea in terms of the music style. And, it's like everyone knows right now it's K pop. So you have these three girls, but one of them, her father was a demon. And this leaves her half demon, which leaves her very conflicted because obviously she is trying to destroy the very thing that she is kin to. And that leaves her very much wanting to work harder and hide away and close herself off, especially now that as they're getting closer to creating what is called the Golden Honeymoon, which will protect the barrier forever after all this time.
Yeah, so they have this honeymoon that is this protective barrier created by their music, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then the golden honeymoon, they have this like chance. Do they ever explain why it's like, oh, all of a sudden they can create this final thing that's like, does it seals it forever?
I think it's because they've been, as just heroes, they've been building towards this for all of time, and it's
Yeah.
finally built up
So
enough
it's like
that it is
they've got the
nearly
honeymoon. It's this
perfect.
protective barrier wrapping their city, which thing that always jumped out at me is like, so every other part of the world, we're just ignoring that the demons can actually prey on the people there. But this city is protected because they have the K-pop demon hunters.
We gotta get our own cool groups,
I
get
guess so.
Taylor Swift to defeat the Balrog.
Okay. All right. But yes, so they're building up, they're going to create the Golden Honeymoon, which is going to seal this barrier forever. It won't have to keep on being reinforced, it'll just be done.
Mm-hmm.
And the demons will be kept out of the world forever. The humans will be protected. And the demons don't want this to happen, right? So what do the demons do?
So the demons decide that you've got to fight fire with fire, and one of them in particular gathers his buddies up and he goes, yeah, we're going to start a boy band.
So like the lord of the demons is Guima.
Yeah. Jinu comes to Guima and says, we're going to start a boy band. And he thinks this idea is kind of silly, but it ends up working very well. They're able to quickly impress everyone with their devilish good looks. And
an important point, Jinu actually bargains with Guima that if it works, he's going to get what he wants, which is his memories erased.
He does not want to remember his past. And that is something that sort of branches off from your typical demons, is that a lot of them were people who were corrupted. And
that's something I do want to talk about because that's one of the conflicts that I have. Because you have, for some reason, this character that you find out they're not really a demon at all. And then it makes you kind of wonder, well, is this all of the demons? Is this when you have a plot point like that?
Yeah,
where it's like you find out that
becomes a demon.
This demons are not just, evil beings with eternal life. They're humans that became demons then it kind of puts everything and changes everything. It's
Yeah.
like, we already have the female main character whose father was a demon. So she's
Mhm.
half demon, but she's fighting the demons.
Yeah.
And, so there's this conflict of interest there. Then all of a sudden you have a demon that's actually a human that made a bad choice in the past, which we find out that he, in order to save himself, neglected his
Mhm.
family and, gave up like
Sold
their
his
character,
soul in a
basically sold his
sense.
soul for wealth and fame. And then he became this eternal demon somehow. We don't really know what the transition was from him being in, you know, the kingdom that he was in, like how many ever centuries ago, right? To now he's
Yeah.
this being that lives in this alternate dimension that's breaking through. It doesn't make a lot of sense,
Yeah.
which is one of the things that creates a lot of conflict. But let's get back to the
I
plot.
have some thoughts on that as well,
Yeah,
but probably
we're going to
so
touch on that later, we promise.
touch base.
So let's speed this up a little bit because we know that we've got this boy band that's coming in to take over and to basically try to sabotage the girls that are trying to create this golden
Huntrix.
Hanmoon to make this sealed barrier where the demons will never be able to get through again, right? So they're going to mess up their plan, and in the course of this, they actually, it works surprisingly well. They're taking over their fans, they're getting their popularity, they're
Mhm.
sowing discord among the girls. And then all this time, you actually have the subplot of one of the girls is losing her voice as her demon markings kind of take over, which the
Mhm.
demons are marked.
With these purplish patterns.
Right. They've got like these tattoos on their bodies, right? Then, and so hers are spreading and somehow disrupting her voice.
Mhm.
And she's living in fear, she's living in guilt and shame. And that's, these markings are representing
Yeah.
guilt and shame. So you have this as a side plot, which is an important side plot. And then there's an attraction between Jinu and Rumi, who's the half demon girl, and the full demon guy. And they start talking to each other and kind of, falling in love. They start understanding each other's backstories and that kind of thing.
Mhm.
He's seen her markings, but he's covered for her.
Yeah.
But it also, it feels like there's a temptation there
Mhm.
where it is the whole thing of, well, you're hating what you are,
Mhm.
and what do you do with that? And it's kind of he's representing, will just give in, and
Mhm.
she's going, no, I've got to fight this.
Yeah.
And it ends with, the big thing at the end. She's in the middle of a concert they're trying to take back and be able to actually, you know the boy band has taken most of their fans away,
Mhm.
and apparently they need the fans in order to create the honeymoon.
Mhm.
They can't do it without the energy of the fans, which is
I
interesting.
guess it's the love and the connection that a concert can
Right.
create.
You've got these vibrations, right, going on,
Good vibrations.
which is again another thing that a lot of Christians are going to have issues with.
Well, it doesn't directly say vibration. It's literally music. But
Right. But it's kind of, I
if
think
you
that we
really
can all
read into it,
agree
yeah.
that music is powerful.
Yeah.
When you start talking vibrations, though, then you get into kind of the Eastern mysticism and the kind of very, this, I'm sidetracking. The director actually said that they had based the plot on Korean pagan, like, history.
Mhm.
So it was based on kind of a,
The Korean mythology and past,
right.
which makes sense. That's another thing that I think is important to take into this, especially when it's a movie that is not only set in a different country, but it brings in, elements in those cultures and
Which is going to
those
be a pretty strong thing,
mythological.
if when you're based on Korean mysticism and then you're trying to say that, oh, it's a Christian film. Well, no, it's not.
No.
You know, that doesn't mean that Christians can't find some themes that are very strong and redemptive in it, but it's not a Christian movie.
Yeah, I think
It's
people need to
not
be
based in the
careful
Christian worldview,
saying
which is
something
why
is Christian.
yeah, it doesn't line up, and it's just not going to line up.
Like C.S.
Because
Lewis, that is Christian. Tolkien, Catholic,
mhm,
which there is some
it's still Christian.
differences, but still Christian. But they are bringing in elements of their home and their religion and belief and mythology from, Britain, whereas this is going to bring in
But it would be literally like looking at the movie Hercules and trying to call that a Christian movie.
Yeah.
It's not Christian. This
or Percy
is
Jackson.
Greek mythology. It's not Christian. That doesn't mean that there's not some true and good things that you can pull out of it, but that's not where it comes from. Anyway, we're
Yep.
getting off the point or off the plot. Let's wrap that up quickly if we can, because we're going to keep touching into it, but want to have a whole big picture before we get too deep into the weeds.
Yeah. I don't think there's too much more that is important to just understanding the film.
She gets exposed.
Yeah.
At the end, some of the demons pretend to be her two bandmates, and they actually show her markings. So
Which
she gets
they don't
exposed in
mean
front of the
anything to
entire
anybody
world.
else, but they mean something to her and her
Right.
bandmates know. And the amount of lying and secrecy that had been going on because she was afraid. And
she ends up actually running off, having a confrontation with her aunt, who's kind of her mentor.
yeah,
And the one that's been kind of keeping them on their mission,
I
training
really
them.
love Celine, that's her name, as a very opposing force to the demons, but almost too far. I think that does a lot for the messaging, is
I want to
the
talk
pure
about
hate
that.
there, but also the fear,
Yeah.
and where goodness can kind of get a little bit. There's like a balance, you know? I think that there's so much to that, which I don't think is always very obvious.
But then she comes back. The demons have kind of managed to get all of the people to come to their concert. They're having this big thing, and it's basically the demons have broken through and are just draining people's souls, like sucking their souls out
Yeah,
left and
there's
right.
no pretending anymore. They're saying right
Yeah.
to the point, which that song is chilling. We were talking about that earlier. They basically come forth and they're just like, yeah, we're evil. You're all evil too. Why should we fight it?
Yeah. It's basically just
Evil loves company.
Yeah, give yourselves over to the darkness inside of you all, because that's what we're left with. And why did her name's not Junie? Is it Junie?
Rumi.
Rumi.
That would be the ship name. Genu and Rumi.
Rumi comes back and like right in time, obviously, and is able to. She starts singing the song that's just very broken, and it's kind of almost her Elsa song, where no more hiding who I'm meant to be. And
well, that's more
it's also it's confessional, it's a coming into the light. It's yeah, but she
this is what it sounds like.
Yeah. And her friends come to her. There's this big kind of battle between the demons and the huntrix, the demon hunters. And it ends up where Genu actually sacrifices himself for her. So he's got his redemption. You actually have a demon that is the one that makes the difference between everything just ending and the demons actually being defeated. So that was interesting. And that's kind of where it ends, where everything kind of goes on. They've got restoration between the friends, and she's able to then live with her markings uncovered and
finally relax.
Yeah.
They can go to the bathhouse, they can eat their
after.
snacks, which they were not doing. Self-care is important.
Okay.
Uh,
That wouldn't be what I would think was a major theme of this, but sure, that's a minor theme.
it
Self-care is
was
important.
pretty big in there.
Okay.
That
All
was
right.
one of her, maybe not like a major theme, but that was
That
something
is
that was
it's a
continuously
minor theme.
happening is just, hey, we're not taking good care of themselves, you know?
Yeah. But when you're on a major mission like that, then it does kind of, things get intense.
Yeah.
Oh,
But
but anyway.
you gotta be filling yourself up enough that you can pour out for others, which is why she kept losing her voice. She kept pushing herself so hard. And anyways,
Yeah.
I'm big on self-care.
But yeah, so again, getting back to, I don't remember where we segued into the plot.
We were talking about the music.
The music, that's one of the really well done things. You see
Mhm.
very strongly this good versus evil, and that's something that I always appreciate when good is good and evil is evil. And I
Mhm.
think that, some people would say that it gets a little bit obscured because
You have broken people
you
trying
have
to do
broken
good
people,
things.
but you also, the two main characters are demons.
Mhm.
I mean, one is half demon, but you know, uh, one of the things that I saw as a negative that people did
Mhm.
not like was that you're trying to have sympathy for a demon,
Mhm.
and to that I would say at this point you really have to be able to. And one of the things I would say if you're talking with your kids is to just go, "This is not a demon," as we think of demons.
Yeah. That
You have to be able to actually establish that and say, this is a pretend thing that's a completely other.
yeah.
These are humans. These are humans that are conflicted, that are, struggling, that are sinful, and that are struggling against their sin.
Mhm.
And when you just try to frame them in the the Christian perspective of what a
Yeah.
demon is, it doesn't work. It's
It's
not
yeah.
what they've actually put in the movie as the history behind these. These aren't what we think of as demons.
Mhm.
These are a mystical being. And it's kind of one of those that, if you can look at Harry Potter and you can go, okay, witches are real, but this is not what a witch is really. This is
They
a
don't have
fictionalized.
wands and they don't do the magical spells that make
Right.
real explosions. It's more of
This is something other.
ritual and stuff like that.
And then you have to be able to look at this and say, this is not a real demon. Real demons, there is no good in them.
Yeah.
There's no
Once they
struggle,
make the
there's no
choice of
redemption.
falling.
Right. This whole thing is telling a very human story. And,
Yeah.
when Dad and I had our episode about demons, we talked about that, a lot of people really like making stories where you're giving very human elements to demons. This is one of those that's doing the same thing. You just can't
Mhm.
look at it and think, that this is in any way parallel to the real world.
Yeah. I
And I
think
think that that's actually pretty important to have that conversation with a kid.
yeah.
Is like, this is fiction. This is
This
completely other.
this is something easier, I think, since it is they are not typical demons in the way they're animated because they're not the American, more Christians like idea. I guess I'm not entirely sure where our idea of demons with the horns and the forked tail come from, but that is something that
Hmm.
makes it easier. But I think it's important to discuss different cultures and
I think that
their monsters and creatures.
I think the kids are way more, they tend to think of everything that's being presented to them, in a fantastical way as being fake.
Yeah.
And when I was talking with my brother, he mentioned that. And, he was going, kids aren't going to have, it's more of an adult thing to look at something and be like, oh, this is demons and demons are real. The kids are
Yeah.
just looking at, this is just a story. But there actually is a point at which you go, we want kids to actually have some context
Mhm.
that's not completely skewed. We want them to be able to go just like we do. Demons are real and demons are evil, and
Yeah.
they're completely against God. Their purpose is to to hurt humans.
Mhm.
There's no redemption for them, that kind of thing. So, while it's like, yeah, no, kids aren't going to have a hard time not thinking of these as real demons. They're going to think that it's a fictionalized thing and completely accept it. But at
Yeah.
the same time, maybe they do need to know that there are real demons in the world, and this isn't that, that's not what this is,
Yeah.
just to prepare them. There's got to be a bridge between fantasy and stories that are
Mhm.
completely make believe and the real. I think that it is important to have that,
Yeah.
of going, transitioning and saying, this is make believe and this is fun.
Mhm.
Here's real, and how we frame that.
That's something I'm very fascinated in my adult life is the real historical origins of fairy and folktale. And when I say fairy, I don't mean the little winged people. I mean the mystical, the magical, the we've seen something but we can't quite explain it, and then stories get told over and over and over again and they become something fantastical.
Mhm.
But to every single story of a dragon or a fairy or an elf or a demon or a ghost or a Bigfoot, there is an origin to it. And me being someone who loves fantasy, I like looking into
Mhm.
where those things come from.
I think that a lot of parents just don't want their kids to be desensitized to the real
Hmm.
by seeing the fake, just all of the meaning being taken away from it.
Yeah.
And that is, I think there is a valid concern there. If you've only seen movies where monsters are funny or sweet, or, Monsters Inc.,
Yeah. Or Sesame Street.
then how do you actually teach them that there are potentially monsters, but the monsters don't look like that? They look like humans.
Yeah.
It's
It's a
like,
hard balance with little kids because fantasy and
but you want to keep them in a
tale is
protective
important.
bubble to some extent.
Yeah, it's important to encourage imagination and wonder
Mhm.
and story in kids, but sometimes that can get a little
But
too
just like,
fictional
you
that
know,
we don't believe anything.
but it's also important for kids to have dragons in stories,
Yeah.
but also stories where dragons can be defeated, right? There's that famous quote.
Hmm.
So having a demon in a story, I'm fine with, if we know that demons can be defeated. But then
Hmm.
again, I don't know that that's necessarily what this story does teach. It teaches more that I,
It's hard because redemption is so important, and that's something
yeah,
really
there's a
attractive
good
about
theme.
demons in stories. Like think of Hellboy. He isn't the a literal like evil I want to end the world. He's born into that
Mhm.
and raised by a scientist to make a good choice.
Mhm.
And that is a very attractive story. Is it biblical? Not necessarily. But the hard thing is because we as Christians believe in redemption.
But
For
that leads into what I dislike the most about this film.
yeah.
The thing that I dislike the most about the film is because it comes so very, very close to Christian and yet misses it. It's as close as the world can come dealing with this theme, and the world keeps trying to deal with this theme and they keep getting it wrong, and it frustrates me. And that's what you do with guilt and shame.
Hmm.
It's a
And how to redeem
very,
that.
very strong theme that runs through this movie. It runs through a lot of different movies. And every time that the world tries to tell this, they miss.
Hmm. Like a
But
parallel line. It's so close, they just never touch.
again, it's a wonderful jumping off point to talk about this. And it can be a bridge builder to Christianity, I think. But you've got this whole thing of the demonic in this is really representing what is wrong with humans, our own
Mm-hmm.
issues, our sin, our shame, our
Hate,
guilt.
self-isolation. It's all the sins of
Ah,
Melkor,
but
as I like to say.
it's actually being physically manifested on their skin when they give
Mm-hmm.
over to it too much. And there's this theme of resisting, of fighting back against it.
Mm-hmm.
And the best way to do that, but
Song is
is
and friendship
song
is how
and
it's presented,
friendship.
which
But here's the deal.
very close.
The director, I heard a quote from the director that I think it was a quote from the director. I may have to look that back up and make sure that that's who that was from. But it basically said that the best answer for guilt is empathy, or for shame is empathy.
Mm.
And it's the idea, and it paralleled because the director said that for her, it was the same as a kid coming out of the closet. It's
Mm.
supposed to represent or parallel that idea that there's something inside of you that people don't like, that people tell you you should be ashamed of. And so you try and hide it, you try and disguise it, you try and fight against it in private. But the only answer is to actually bring it out into the open and have people understand that part of you and accept it, right?
That doesn't feel like what the movie gets at, though.
But when you have this girl who's going, if this is the Hanmoon that I'm fighting for, then I don't want anything of it. That confrontation between her and her aunt,
Mm-hmm.
where the aunt is telling her, you have to hide this part of you. When the golden honeymoon happens, you won't have the markings anymore. And that's your only hope of ever being free, is to get rid of the markings,
Mm-hmm.
right? And she's going, no, I don't want to walk in fear. I don't want to walk in shame and guilt. I want my friends to see me and accept me as I am.
Mm-hmm.
It's there. That theme is there. And what actually helps is for her friends to be able to look at her and go, the markings don't define who you are. But that's where it gets muddled.
Yeah.
Because it's like, we actually are saying that we're fighting against this. We're not just saying that it's good. But yet
Yeah.
we also understand, it's like we're saying that it's bad, but we're also kind of saying that it's not bad and that it doesn't define you. It doesn't make who you are. So it doesn't completely parallel with the whole idea of, what the world would say coming out of a closet is like, well,
Yeah.
there was never anything to be ashamed of in the first
I
place.
feel like, yeah, I feel like
So it's like,
that's a bad
well, are you
analogy
saying something or are you not saying something?
Because if you're saying that that is something demonic, which the movie presents as bad, point blank, it says that the demons are bad. And Genu, though he redeemed himself, he still made such bad choices that it did condemn him to being a demon.
Mm-hmm.
That does not make him good. And with Rumi,
But
she is paying for the fault of her mom and dad.
right.
And in that,
And a
she
lot
is
of
carrying that
people,
generational
right, the generational guilt, the generational shame.
guilt.
But it wasn't her guilt and shame.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, it's kind of like, because it's so fluid, it doesn't really pin down what exactly
Yeah.
it
I
is.
feel like you need to be
It leaves it open for
careful.
a lot of interpretation.
Yeah. I found that has been a big thing is I found people able to interpret this movie so many different ways. But I really feel like you have to be careful drawing a parallel to, like,
Yeah.
especially coming out of the
But when
closet.
you know that the director drew that parallel, that's what she was trying to say,
I just feel like she.
then it's like, well, if that's what you were trying to say, I feel like you kind of did a bad job
Yeah,
at it.
that's.
But
Because if you actually
okay.
think about it, it's a little. That's not the kindest
But it's still
in
there
some ways.
enough that people can stand behind that message if they
Yeah.
want to. And
Which
yet then you've got,
if you do
which is
interpret it
again
that way,
why
you
this
know.
movie is so heavily debated.
Mhm.
Because people are going, this is what the intention was, and this is what they're doing. And then other Christians that are going, but that's not what they actually did.
Yeah.
They're actually fighting against evil. They're fighting, she's saying, well, this is not who I am. This doesn't doesn't define me. I'm not going to give into it. I'm going to fight against it. I'm going to reject it. And in the end, even though her markings are
Mhm.
uncovered, if you'll notice, the markings change. They become lighter. They become more like scars that she bears
Yeah.
rather than, the dark defining markings. Like, so it's almost kind of one of those things where it's like you fought and conquered. Yes, you still carry scars from your fight,
Mhm.
but you didn't give in, and so they've lightened.
That was something that
And
I didn't expect to find, and I guess my view of the theme of this movie, which unfortunately it's very much up for interpretation. So everyone can interpret this a different way, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. But when it's a children's movie, it does get controversial, and I
Mhm.
understand that. But coming from my perspective,
When you have a someone who's anti-Christian and a Christian both using the same thing to teach their children opposite messages,
yeah,
yeah.
it's understandable. That's one of the pitfalls of Harry Potter as well.
Mhm.
People have been able to use that to say all sorts of different things, and the Christian perspective on that, you can say something totally else. Which I don't know. I don't know if that's good or bad. I think it's neutral. I think it can be bad and it can be good, but I don't know if
Mm.
it's either or.
It's a neutral, but it's a chaotic neutral, that's for
For
sure.
sure.
So it's
My interpretation of the themes, I think, are definitely, they're more just about the light. And that was something I didn't expect. I saw a lot of people talking about the Christian themes, and I was, I guess, confused. I didn't ever judge this movie as, I mean, I judged it a little bit to start because it was popular,
I
but
don't think it needs to be viewed as a Christian movie. I think that's what's
yeah,
causing a lot of the issues, is that Christians
the,
are claiming it as Christian. It's not
yeah.
Christian. Does that mean that
But the themes are
there are good
good.
themes in there. There are
Yeah.
real themes in there that you can use to tell. Just like a lot of fairy tales, like, a lot of stories out there.
Hmm.
It's like there's truth in them that you can draw a bridge to Christianity. That doesn't mean that it's Christian.
Yeah, I think there definitely needs to be that care, but I was surprised at, the depth of those messaging, and what I was able to take out of it was just that evil likes to sit alone in the dark with
Mm,
company, which is confusing, but it wants you to isolate yourself, to draw away, to surround yourself with people who are just as miserable as you and
mm,
who feel just as alone. And that was something that the movie I thought did really well, was that messaging of coming together
mhm,
and using song to
mhm,
connect people and to uplift. And there was a strong message of using positive music
mhm,
and deep music and of being open and honest about your struggles. That's something that each of the girls
mhm,
have a moment of realizing where they struggle, and like from people pleasing to kind of pushing people away because you don't feel accepted or wanted, that you end up pushing them away or just hiding and isolating yourself. And that was something I thought was kind of interesting they did with both Celine, the ant, and the demon, was
mhm,
that they essentially ended up saying the same thing: isolate yourself and either like constrict yourself and force yourself to be this perfect mold and never ever, accept that you are broken
mhm.
and that you can shine a light into that brokenness.
I think it needs to be said at this point,
Hmm.
because I don't think that I said it when I was talking about
Yeah.
the guilt and that kind of thing. the thing that this story needed,
Mm.
of course, it would have pushed it over completely into Christian. The thing that the story needed was that the answer to guilt and shame is not to simply come out and tell everybody and have them accept and understand that, we all are broken and we all have sin and that kind of thing. It still leaves us in our brokenness.
Mm.
The answer to guilt and shame is Jesus.
Mm.
And having a character that actually lays down his life for the
Yeah.
redemption is one of those where it's like, this was so, so very close. But the thing is that
It's not gonna be
somebody,
perfect because
yeah, somebody that is a demon that is so broken themselves can't be the sacrifice.
yeah,
And that's where Christianity comes in and says,
should have been
here's
Bobby.
Jesus. Oh,
I don't
here
want
is
Bobby to die,
Jesus.
but
But we didn't have, you can only have one Jesus. You can only
yeah,
have
that's true.
one sinless person who actually can pay that price and completely cleanse you so that you go, this is my brokenness, this is my sin, this is my shame. And he goes, you're clean, you're washed clean. That's
Yeah.
no longer you. I'm taking that away. I paid the price for your brokenness and your sin and your shame, and
Hmm.
that's not you anymore.
The unfortunate thing is when you start with a movie like this, which there's no way for it to be Christian,
That's the
and
thing. The world
it's
tried to tell that story. They tried to
yeah,
say, this is how you heal from the guilt of shame. And they went, well, shame is bad. But the thing is that shame is not necessarily bad. Shame is a step on your journey.
hmm
We need to feel shame because that's what drives us to Jesus.
hmm
Shame is a necessary step in understanding that we have fallen short. If we can't feel shame, if we erase that, which is what, the world is kind of trying to do here with this movie, is
hmm
they're trying to say, you don't have, yeah, great, thank you for saying don't just accept who you are and, think, oh, well, I can never get out of it, so I'll just embrace it. They at least didn't say that.
yeah,
You know, they said, no, you fight back against it, but
it
they
doesn't.
didn't give us the answer because we can keep fighting our
Yeah,
entire lives and we're going to keep failing and keep messing up.
that's the thing though, is that for what this movie is, it does very well.
Hmm.
For what the movie can be. Unfortunately, it can't really be any more.
Yeah.
I don't think there's a way that this could have been
But what
improved.
a beautiful tool
Yeah.
to be able to talk to your kids and say, here's where it ends and here's where Jesus begins.
It doesn't give you the answer, which I
No,
think is the best thing it could have done. Because in the end, a movie
but so many
shouldn't give
people
you the answer.
will be content to stop there.
Yeah, that's the thing. We can't think
And
of
if we
our
make people
media.
feel good about stopping there, which they kind of do, then you're leaving people happy
Yeah.
in their sin and their brokenness.
Yeah.
And actually tell them, well, you just don't have to feel shame. Just don't feel shame. And that's where I'm going,
Yeah.
you know,
I think that's how you use the tool of a movie. I don't think a movie should ever be the end, the answer to everything. I think that's why I love bittersweet endings so much, and I've talked about this before, I believe, on the podcast with Hades Town, is the tragedy has you thinking this more. But even with happy endings, that is never the end. And that is something that unfortunately fantasy and fiction have failed at, is because we have happily ever after. That's never the case. And it shouldn't be. If we go into a movie letting a movie stop once we turn it off, we are not using the tool correctly at all, which is why we have to be conscious of what we're consuming. And for children, that is difficult unless you are guided by a parent or a sibling or just an older, wiser figure in your life. You have to teach people that happily ever after is never the end. It's
But in the
just the
end,
tool, the stepping stool.
this is a very humanist movie.
Yeah.
Humanistic. I mean, it points to humans being able to save ourselves through our own efforts.
Hmm.
And ultimately, that is the most insidious lie that people believe. It's been the thing that every other religion, every other belief system has in common, other than Christianity. Christianity is the only one that says, well, you think you can't do it because you can't do it.
Yeah.
You need Jesus. Every other religion and belief system that humans have come up with has been, we can just keep trying and we can do it.
Most every story
And
really
that is
ends
what
that
this
way.
says, which is why, I watched somebody YouTube video today that was like, this is a Christian movie and we need to go and see it and we need to encourage people to see it so that they can make more like this because we need to support and show them that we Christians want this kind of thing. And I'm going, I mean, I can see your Christian themes there, sure, but you're missing something just as much as the people who are on the other side saying this is evil and don't let your kids watch it.
Hmm.
Neither one of these extremes are right.
That's why there's always a spot in the middle that is closest to correct.
Mm-hmm.
We're never going to be perfect. We're never going to know. We're never going to have it all right. It is impossible, but you can't go to either extreme.
And I'm just as okay with the parent who says, yeah, I let my kids watch this, I sing along, we, enjoy it, as the person that goes, no, I'm not going to let my kids watch it. I think that I want to shelter them from this.
Mm-hmm.
I understand both sides of this. For me, I'm the parent that goes, I'm going to let my kids watch it and I'm going to talk about all the good and I'm going to talk about what I
Mm-hmm.
see as some bad. And I'm going to bridge that over and I'm going to actually point towards the truth as I see it. And that may keep developing and keep growing. We will probably continue. We've had these conversations for the past couple of months now,
Mm-hmm.
and that will probably continue. And I will probably continue picking on people. Like I threw this at my brother just the other day. Like, hi, what did you think about K-pop Demon Hunters? And just getting all of those different perspectives. I love it.
Conversation's important.
Conversations are good.
That's the point of movies. That's something I think we lose more and more each day, that I hope that the next generations can fight against, is the isolation and just consumption and never producing. And by producing, I don't mean you have to go out and create something necessarily, but when you watch something, don't just watch it alone. Talk to people. Think about it. Don't let it be I watched the thing, moving on to the next. No, let it resonate. Let it sit there. Let it mean something. Because if art doesn't mean something, it's not art. You know? And don't just let things be meaningless. Go through life. I guess that's my little moral for today. But I never watch movies alone. I'll sometimes watch a series, usually watch a series by myself, and occasionally I'll rewatch a couple movies. But if I'm watching a new movie, I want to share it with people. I'll go out to a movie theater, even if it's expensive, I want to make it mean something. I want to have that conversation. I want to be around people and experience the world.
Mm-hmm.
And even if you're just watching movies at home, talk to people, make videos, even if you never show them to people. Write fan fiction. I don't know. Just make something. Be excited, because I think that's what is important with movies, and we can't let them just be something you just mindlessly consume. And I think that's the danger of letting really little kids just watch anything, which I think is something sad about kids' movies, is sometimes we just turn them on and let our kids watch whatever. I don't think you should do that if you can help it. There are some things that you can kind of trust to be good to show your kids and
Mhm.
just let them watch, but this comes from someone who's not been a parent but who has babysat. I cannot fully relate to having a kid and being there for them 24/7, but it's exhausting
Mhm.
just doing it for like not even 9 to 5, just
There's a
morning
level
to
of
night.
knowing that something is safe enough to let your kid just watch, and yet knowing too that as they get older, there's probably some themes you're going to have to like explore a little bit more, and that's okay.
Yeah,
So, what last minute thoughts do you have that you want to throw out there about this?
these are very surface level, but I really like the difference between the boy band and the girl band as the Saja boys and Huntrix.
Hmm.
I liked the aesthetic differences because they are very reflective of my experience, isn't the correct word, but what I've seen of K pop groups is that aesthetically, the Saja boys are a lot more colorful, which, considering they're demons, very much a facade, but the colorful pastel aesthetic versus Huntrix being a little bit more edgy, I thought was really interesting because I've seen a lot of girl K-pop groups that tend to go a little bit more edgy than the boy K-pop groups tend to wear a lot of pastel. I thought that was interesting. I don't know why. I don't know a lot about K-pop, but that was something I noticed that I thought was cool. Another thing, I thought that the way they presented K-pop was very nice and approachable. It's not a genre I really have dug into, but I've just encountered it being on the internet. But the personable way that they showed interactions between the Huntrix girl group and their fans, I thought was really sweet. And oftentimes they don't actually go into those little details of performer and fan base. And I thought that that was a very good little detail to put in there.
Speaking of,
Mm.
just interjecting really quickly, one of the things that people, some Christians that didn't like this, said was that there's this idolizing thing
Yeah.
where you had the demon boy band was way more kind of overt about we want you to idolize us.
It's literally a song, "My Idol" or "Your
Hmm.
Idol," something like that.
And one of the things that I heard someone say was that they, even though the girls didn't say it, they wanted that idolization too. It really was
Yeah.
kind of this battle between who are you going to idolize. Eh,
Yeah, which is a very realistic thing in the music world
with K-pop, it's kind of one of those things that you are there is this culture of idolizing
and
these singers.
dehumanizing,
Hmm.
like, holding them up as these perfect people.
But I don't feel like the movie really, I feel like that was something that was seen as a negative in the movie. I don't think that it
Yeah.
was presented as a you have a choice of who are you going to idolize. I don't think that's what it
Mhm.
was saying. So to me, I actually felt like that was a positive and it was a well done thing.
Yeah.
That they're saying, don't idolize these people. See the humanity behind
Yeah, the
the
also
them.
the animation and the moments we have with the girls, they are very human.
Hmm.
And there's this scene everyone likes to talk about. This scene is them eating, and it's over the top, it's cartoony. There's so many moments of them getting done with their set and just being like, couch, couch, couch. They're, they're
Hmm.
people. And that is something that I think they did so well, was taking the over the topness and using those relatable little moments to really humanize
Hmm.
the main characters, and the jokes were great. There was so many really good moments of humor that I thought were really good. There's a lot that if I were to go and just go beat by beat to pick out little bits that I could go, that was great. But, we're more talking about the overall themes. There there is a lot that's very fun about this movie. Even just ignoring the overarching themes, the movie was very well done. Sony has been doing a great job. I think that is really good. Last thing, I think Bobby's fantastic. Just gotta say it. Because we never talk about Bobby, because he's not really a main character, but Bobby's fantastic. You always
Okay.
gotta get yourself a Bob or a Bobby.
Right. Well, that is, I'm sure that we could go on a lot longer. I'm sure you could go on a lot longer. But we need to wrap that up. So hopefully you've had fun in our conversation, and I would love it if you have thoughts about this, if you've seen it, if you've
Absolutely.
not seen it, that you would tell us what you think. Are we way off base? If we hit some points right, if we got others completely wrong, we'd love to hear. So with that, we're going to say